So listen to this. Michael Olise is addicted to aura farming. I don't want to get all Gen Z on you, but I don't know how else to put it. This guy just can't let go of the nonchalant gimmick. It's always one-word replies in every post-match interview. When his teammates were celebrating the Bundesliga title, he was on chess.com getting his elo up, and I know, a postman doesn't celebrate every time he delivers a package, but man, 3 years ago, this guy hit a last-minute free kick to equalize against Man United, and he refused to celebrate. If that was me, I'd be hitting 7 different emotes and jumping into the stands. No wonder this guy gets on everyone's nerves. I'd probably hit him too if he wasn't so goddamn good. Though, I'm sorry to break it to you, I think this nonchalant thing is just cope. You see, Olise wasn't always this superstar wonder kid. I mean, have you never asked yourself how a guy like him ended up at Crystal Palace? Well, this gets kinda complex, but at 7, while he was already playing for both Arsenal and his local team, a scout named Sean Conlon spotted him and not only got him to join his own talent agency, but to drop out of the other academies in order to join Chelsea instead. And look, things were good. Sean even claimed he was the best talent in the country. However, there were 2 problems. First, it was so good he couldn't understand the need to work so hard, and second, as one of his future teammates would explain, people have a hard time understanding him. Sometimes he'll ignore you and not say hello, but he's not a bad person. If you speak to him, he's such a nice guy, but I think that rubbed coaches up the wrong way when he was coming through the academy system. In other words, Olise was always extremely talented but also extremely shy, and that shyness often came off as rudeness or arrogance, to the point that at 14, he was kicked out of Chelsea's academy, all while they kept his younger brother around till this day, which only made it sting even more. After that, Sean tried to get him back on track, but nothing stuck. After a 6-month trial at Man City, he just got rejected again. Then, 6 months went by without a club, as Sean kept bringing him into these showcase games he arranged himself to promote the talents at his agency, but despite the fact that we had all the scouts in London in disbelief, no offers arrived. Not until Sean started sending DVDs with his highlights everywhere he could, finally getting a bite from Reading. As you can imagine, Olise had grown up playing with talents like Jamal Musiala, who would soon be getting offers from Bayern. Meanwhile, he was now stuck in the academy of a championship-level club. This was nothing like the career he had imagined for himself, but really, Reading made him. They found him at his lowest and offered him a backdoor towards the top, feeding his will to prove everyone wrong and channeling it into an obsession to become better. That's what gave him that resilience he didn't really have back when things came easy for him, and in a lot of ways, it was also what led him to disguise that shyness as effortless detachment. I'm no psychologist, but I don't think he is aura farming. This is just a coping mechanism. After all, what shy kid hasn't fooled himself into trying to be perceived as mysterious rather than awkward? Still, though only 2 years later, he was already starting for the first team as the youngest player in the championship. His manager Mark Bowen wasn't about to start going easy on him. The moment he realized he would play brilliantly only to lose the ball and just walk back as if it was none of his business, he sent him back to the under-23s and made him play as a defensive midfielder to teach him a lesson, and soon, he was dropping deeper than the center backs, trying to get the ball off the keeper. I'd be shouting at him, but really, it was almost funny. He got up the pitch so easily I couldn't help thinking that this geezer probably thinks we're not very good at football. So, in the end, he was being named Reading's Scholar of the Year, being handed his first professional contract and getting called up to France's under-18s, which, as he said, had been his dream since he was a child, even though he was also eligible for England, Algeria, and Nigeria. And though, by the next season, his teammates couldn't ignore how much of a mentality monster he had become, claiming he was outworking everyone else, they were all still puzzled by the way he acted outside the pitch. As one hilariously mentioned, midway through the season, he unfollowed us all on Instagram. He was only following family and a few of his closest teammates. Eventually, we realized that this rapper he loves, Lil Uzi Vert, had also unfollowed everyone. I think he was just trying to be like him. But the strangest part was how we'd see this kid shouting every time he beat the manager at 2-touch, but then he'd scored an important goal and refused to celebrate. We never worked out why, he never gave us an answer, but he's just different, a special player. And he really was. On his third season, they finally made him a key player, and just 2 games in, he was already opening his assist tally through a corner kick. The next game, he hit a volley from 30 yards out, and the one after that, another assist, now through a free kick. By October, he was going on a 50-yard run to score against Blackburn, and after getting rested for a few games, he came back with 6 goal contributions in 6 starts. Not to mention that, when the manager tried to rest him in the middle of that streak, he found himself needing a goal, and seeing how annoyed Olise was about being on the bench, he sent him in, and in the last minute he played a 1-2 and bent it towards the far post from 30 yards out. At this point, no one had any doubt he was the best in the team, and Olise sure believed that as well, as a random girl would leak some Instagram DMs in which she asked him if he played for Reading, and he replied, "Moving to the Prem in the summer, I'm on bigger things, won't catch me playing for a small championship team for too long." And though he claims it was all fake, if he did say that, it wasn't too far-fetched, because after smashing an absurd half volley against Derby alongside 7 more goal contributions, even if Reading had finished just below the promotion playoff spots, Olise not only was the championship's young player of the season, he was also the best dead ball specialist around, easily one of the best passers, playmakers and dribblers. It couldn't be more obvious that fresh off his 19th birthday, he was already a big fish in a small pond. However, he didn't rush things. With rumors of Chelsea hovering around, he instead moved to Crystal Palace, and though a jump up to the Premier League still wasn't a joke, especially for a teenager, the moment they gave him more than 10 minutes on the pitch, he stepped in with his team 2 goals behind, took 1 touch and smacked in a volley for the goal that made him Palace's youngest goal scorer since '98, and then proceeded to put in the cross that led to their equalizer. So, as much as Vieira insisted he wasn't ready, the next match he brought him in as they were tied to Arsenal, and he assisted the goal that put him in front. And then, against City, again, he came in with 5 minutes left and still got his assist. For 5 months, Vieira refused to make him a regular starter, but by January, he came in against West Ham and put in a perfect cross for another assist, and then a free kick to score a goal as well, making himself quite literally the league's most productive player, with a goal or assist every 52 minutes, running it back 7 days later in the FA Cup with another goal and assist in a 2-1 win over local rivals Millwall, all while getting bottles thrown at him and having the nerve to kick them out of the pitch and ask for more, being named Palace's Player of the Month, and finally forcing Vieira to give up and simply make him the first name on every team sheet from there on out. Though things wouldn't be so simple. Before the season ended, Olise came down with a foot injury that he only fully recovered from by October. In fact, even then, it would still be pretty clear that his form had taken a hit. Suddenly, half the season had gone by, and aside from 2 assists, all he had to his name was a 90th minute winner against West Ham, and even then, he didn't seem too excited. I mean, even less than usual, with a reporter asking him to talk us through the goal, and him only replying that, "Wilf passed me the ball, shot, scored." And it surely didn't help his mood that, starting right there, Palace would go 17 matches with only 1 win. There should have been no way to turn this season into anything memorable, but somehow he did it. On the last day of the year, he hit 2 assists to beat Bournemouth 2-0 for that aforementioned single win in 5 months. Then, in January, he hit a last-minute free kick against United that won him the Premier League's Goal of the Month award, but he still didn't look too happy, so by April, he became the youngest ever player to assist 3 goals in a single Premier League game to force Palace to take 2 wins in a row for the first time since, well, his last-minute winner against West Ham. And by the end, he had made himself the first ever Palace player to hit 10 Premier League assists, even going a step further and making it 11, being named their Player of the Year, only to leave for international duty with the French under-21s and get injured again. Still, that didn't stop Chelsea from triggering his £35 million release clause, which just allowed him to finally get his revenge, choosing to renew his contract with Palace instead, leading their CEO to troll Chelsea on Twitter and their social media team to post clips of him to the sound of "Chelsea Dagger" by the Fratellis. And, well, once he finally recovered, a single look at his scouting report could tell you what every pundit had been repeating over and over again: to become world-class, he needs goals. So, He got them. Within 2 months of his comeback, he had already scored more goals than he had since he arrived at the club. In fact, his goal-scoring rate had only been outdone by two wingers, Palmer and Salah. It was simple. When he was off, Palace lost. When he was on, they won. And that was why, after coming off his last game complaining that his injury was acting up again, 3 days later, when Roy Hodgson saw his team down 3-0 at halftime, he brought him on regardless. And 11 minutes later, Olise was limping off the pitch. Hodgson still tried to justify himself by claiming that it's hard to tell how Michael is feeling because he's so quiet, but it didn't matter. Now the fans were chanting that you don't know what you're doing, and after 2 months on the sidelines, once Olise came back, he had already been sacked and replaced with Oliver Glasner. Still, nothing seemed to get to Olise, and so, determined to get his move out of Palace at the end of the season, despite many claiming his injury had made that impossible and knowing his team was now dangerously close to relegation, from the moment he made his first start back, it did not allow them to lose another match. 7 goal contributions in those final 7 games of the season, with a brace against Man United, and not only allowed Palace to match their biggest win over them since 1972, but for once put a smile on Olise's face as he ran to hug Glasner in celebration. After that game, he legitimately had pundits calling him a superstar, insisting he could play for any team in the world. And remember what I said earlier about Palace not being able to win without him? Now, as the season ended, their winning percentage was 26% without him and 42% with him. If it wasn't for Palmer and the injury, that nomination for Young Player of the Year would have easily been a win. But regardless, as he once again got to reject Chelsea as well as Arsenal, United and Newcastle in order to instead take a €60 million move out to Bayern, finally rejoining his childhood teammate Jamal Musiala, I'm sure he finally felt like a winner again. Arriving in Munich, fresh off the Olympic Games, where Henry picked him ahead of Ryan Cherki and Désiré Doué, being paid back immediately as Olise made it a legitimate argument that he'd been the man of the match in all 5 games he started, assisting the opener and scoring another in the first game, assisting the only goal in the second, and then doing that again in the quarters, before forcing the semi-finals into extra time with another assist, and then scoring the goal that put them in the final where, despite losing, he didn't just get his assists, he made 7 key passes, completed 9 dribbles and won 16 ground duels, finally forcing the shot to give him his full-on national team debut. But no matter what, it still wasn't enough to convince the Germans. There was already a negative sentiment towards making some kid from Crystal Palace their 4th biggest signing ever, so when he showed up to his unveiling, answering every question with either yes or no, they became convinced there was no way in hell this guy could be the impact signing they were looking for after their most disappointing campaign in over a decade. Quickly, doubts were raised over the judgment of their new recruiting department, of their new manager Compagnie. If the pressure wasn't already immense, Olise would now also have to deal with the fact that whether he wanted to or not, he was the poster boy for Bayern's revolution. And yet, as always, he remained cool. An assist on his debut calmed everyone down, and by the 3rd match day, he was already scoring his first goal. 3 days later, his first brace, and the match after that, he put down what has been named as the best performance by any Bundesliga player over the whole season. 2 goals and 2 assists to bring Werder Bremen down 5-0, just making a mockery of their defense like an uncle playing in the backyard with his nephews. And then, he just kept doing that every match. By the end of October, he was already banging in free kicks, and once Kane went out injured against Dortmund, guess who came in to tie the match? Guess who put down 5 goal contributions over the 5 games he missed? This guy was going past 6 players at a time and faking a shot to put the keeper down before sliding it in. At 22, he was the youngest player in Bayern's history to get 3 goal contributions in a Champions League game. The kid, who once upon a time had been criticized for not being much of a goal scorer, was now banging in one of the most impressive strikes of the season to put them through the knockout stages playoff round. And by the end of the season, as now it was Musiala went out injured just as they needed to lock down their 6-point lead to take back the Bundesliga title, he stepped up with 4 goals and 5 assists over the last 5 matches of the season, securing that title, taking the league's Player of the Month award, and leading Bayern's technical director to outright claim that, given the way he took over from Musiala and Kane when they couldn't be there, Olise has proved he is the future of Bayern. In fact, it was also the Bundesliga's Young Player of the Season and its top assist provider, with almost double the number of chances created of second-place Florian Wirtz and more contributions per 90 than any winger in Europe aside from Mbappe. This guy, at the league's social media accounts calling this the greatest debut season in history, his market value is shot up to 100 million already, and looking at his scouting reports, it's no wonder it has. They are borderline perfect. But as much as he tried to keep his aura intact, Thomas Muller made sure he got a beer shower like everyone else. Still, he hasn't changed. Ever since then, he made it into his first ever tournament with France and averaged a goal or assist every 49 minutes on his way to a silver medal. And after his 4-goal contributions helped Bayern put 10 goals past Auckland City, he was asked if he felt bad and just replied, nope. That's how he hit 40 goal contributions on his debut season. That is Michael Olise.